The rule that 99% of traders skip is not hidden. It's not buried in some old dusty book, nor is it locked away in a vault. No, it's in plain sight, staring every man in the face the moment he puts his money on the line, and yet, strangely, maddeningly, most of them will turn away from it, as if it were a shadow in the corner they'd rather not acknowledge. Why? Because this rule isn't easy. It demands discipline, it demands patience, and above all, it demands a kind of honesty most men aren't willing to summon when the ticker tape starts whispering lies into their ears. Do you know what I mean when I say lies? Of course, you've felt it, that swell in your chest when a stock ticks in your favor for a few points, and you think you've proven yourself a genius. But then the tape takes back its gift, and you're left wondering whether the fault lies with the market or with you. Which is it? Men come into this game thinking it's about predicting the next move. They believe the market is a puzzle with a solution, and if only they can learn the right signals, they'll be masters of it. But the market is no puzzle. It's a mirror. It reflects right back at you all your weaknesses, your impatience, your vanity, your greed, your fear. The rule that 99% skip is the rule of self-mastery. Not a method, not a secret indicator, but the plain and brutal law of controlling yourself before you ever think of controlling a trade. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to make money in a bull market, and how fast you give it back in the first sharp break? That is no accident. That is your own nature turning against you. When I first started trading as a boy in the bucket shops, I thought it was a matter of calculation. I would look at the tape, find the trend, and take my shot. For a while it worked. I made more money than I ever thought possible for a lad of my age. But then, as quick as the money came, it would vanish. I wasn't wrong about the stock. I wasn't even wrong about the direction. What I was wrong about was myself. The tape could tell me when to buy and when to sell, but it couldn't stop me from overtrading, from grabbing at profits too soon, from holding on to losses because I couldn't bear to be proven wrong. And isn't that the same mistake you've made? Be honest with yourself. Haven't you cut winners short, telling yourself you'd take just a little profit, only to watch the stock soar higher without you? Haven't you clung to a loser, muttering that it had to come back, even as your account bled dry? The market doesn't care what you want. The market doesn't care what you need. It only cares about your discipline, or your lack of it. That's the rule most traders never follow: the discipline to sit, to wait, to do nothing until the moment is right, and then to act with conviction when the moment comes. 99 out of 100 can't do it. They think doing nothing is weakness. They think they must always be in the market, always making trades, always proving to themselves and others that they are players in the great game. But tell me, who do you think ends up with the money? The restless gambler, or the man who waits like a hunter, patient, silent, with his finger steady on the trigger until the prey steps into the clearing? I learned long ago that it is not the brilliant trade that makes the fortune. It is the series of right actions governed by rules. And the most important rule, the 99% of traders skip, is to never let your emotions dictate your actions. Do you know why most men fail at this game? It's because they cannot separate themselves from their money. They treat every dollar like a child of their own flesh, and so every fluctuation in price is like a stab in the heart. When the market takes a few points from them, they panic, they lash out, they try to get it back at once, as if the market owed them a favor. But the market owes you nothing. Have you ever thought of it that way? Nothing at all. You can watch a stock for weeks, you can plan your entry with the precision of a general, and still the market may move against you. What do most men do then? They argue with the tape. They insist they are right, that the market is wrong. But the market is never wrong. The price is the price. To say otherwise is to fool yourself, and in this game, self-deception is the surest road to ruin. If you want to win, you must learn to lose. You must learn to take a loss quickly, without hesitation, without emotion, without the childish hope that maybe, just maybe, the tide will turn. How many times have you ignored that simple act, only to find that the small loss you could have taken has become a gaping wound in your account. And yet, you will do it again. Why? Because you have not learned the rule. This rule demands courage of a different sort than most men understand. Any fool can be brave when he thinks he's winning. But can you be brave when you must admit you're wrong? Can you be brave enough to cut your losses without excuse, without hesitation, and to sit patiently for days or weeks until the next real opportunity comes? That is the kind of courage that separates the 1% from the 99. The rest will always chase tips, hunches, rumors. They'll always crave the action, the excitement, the illusion that they are part of the great drama unfolding on the floor. But in truth, they are nothing but gamblers, and the market loves nothing more than to strip gamblers of their money. Do you know why the bucket shops loved men like that? Because they always came back? They couldn't resist. They'd win a little, lose a lot, borrow, beg, and come back again, certain that the next play would be different. But it never was. The names change, the prices change, but the weakness in human nature does not. And that's why the rule is skipped time and time again. It goes against human nature. We are not made to sit idle. We are not made to admit we are wrong. We are not made to cut our losses and let our profits run. We are made to act, to defend, to seize. But in this game, that instinct is the death of you. Have you ever considered how strange that is? That to win in the market, you must do the very opposite of what your nature compels you to do. Think of the great campaigns of history. A general doesn't rush his army into battle every day simply because he wants to fight. He waits for the right ground, the right time, the right conditions. He gathers his strength, he studies his enemy, and when the time comes, he strikes with force and precision. That is what trading demands. But the 99% cannot wait. They rush headlong into skirmishes that drain their capital and their morale. They mistake movement for progress, activity for success, and then they wonder why their accounts dwindle to nothing. Tell me, haven't you felt that same urge? Haven't you opened a position not because the market invited you, but because you were bored or restless, or simply afraid of missing out? Be honest with yourself, haven't you? And when the losses pile up, what do? They blame the news, they blame manipulation, they blame everything but the one thing that matters, themselves. The man who learns this rule, who faces the mirror and admits that the fault lies not in the tape but in his own nature, that man has a chance. But the others? They will skip the rule, because it is the hardest of all. The funny thing is, once you grasp this truth, trading becomes simpler, though never easier. The discipline to wait, the discipline to act decisively, the discipline to admit when you're wrong. Those are not tricks, they are not systems, they are the foundation. And yet, how many will tell you they've mastered it? 99 out of 100 will claim they understand, but watch them trade, and you'll see the truth. They'll still chase, they'll still hope, they'll still tremble at every tick. They may know the rule in their minds, but they have not carved it into their bones. And until they do, the market will teach them, over and over, with the harshest lessons. Now, ask yourself, have you truly learned it? Or are you still one of the 99? Here are 10 fresh keynote ideas in Jesse Livermore's style for your speech. The rule 99% of traders skip. The hardest part of trading is not reading the tape. It is reading yourself. Doing nothing when the market demands nothing is the greatest action a trader can take. The tape never lies, but the trader almost always does, to himself first. Losses are tuition. The fool pays forever, the wise man pays once. The market punishes impatience more than it punishes ignorance. A trader who argues with the market is like a sailor who curses the storm. Cutting losses is courage. Letting profits run is wisdom. Doing both is survival. Most fortunes are lost not in bad trades, but in refusing to let go of bad trades. The greatest mistake is seeking constant action instead of waiting for the right moment. The market rewards discipline and ruins vanity. It is the final judge of a man's character. The hardest part of trading is not reading the tape. It is reading yourself. The tape has no emotions, no bias, no hidden agenda. It tells you exactly what is happening in the market, moment by moment, without caring whether you profit or lose. The figures roll out with indifference, and yet every man who stares at them sees something different. Why is that? Because he is not really seeing the tape. He is seeing his own reflection projected onto the numbers. The tape is the mirror, and the trader is the fool who mistakes his own face for someone else's. Tell me, haven't you noticed how the same stock can appear to one man as a great opportunity, while to another it looks like a death trap? The stock hasn't changed. The tape hasn't lied. It's the man himself who interprets what he wants to see. When I first stepped into the bucket shops, I thought it was all about the tape. I studied it, memorized its rhythms, learned how it behaved in different conditions. I believed if I could master the movements of prices, I could master the market. And for a while, I did. But what I didn't understand was that my greatest enemy wasn't hidden in the tape. It was sitting right behind my own eyes. My impatience, my greed, my fear of missing out. These were the forces that wrecked me, not the movement of the market. Do you see it? The numbers never changed their nature, but I did, from 1 hour to the next. Reading the tape is mechanical. Anyone can learn it with time and practice. It is no different than learning to read a book or a newspaper. But reading yourself, your impulses, your weaknesses, your irrational hopes, that is the real art, and most men never even attempt it. They think the fight is out there, on the floor, in the price action, in the news. But the fight is inside, and the losses they blame on the market are nothing more than defeats at the hands of their own nature. Be honest. How many times have you told yourself you saw a signal in the tape, when in truth what you saw was the excuse you needed to justify a trade you were itching to make? How many times have you convinced yourself the market was giving you an opportunity, when it was only your desire for action twisting the tape into a story that pleased you? That is the hardest part, stripping away your own illusions, your own noise, so you can see the tape as it truly is. I cannot tell you how many men I've known who could quote the numbers with perfect accuracy, who could describe every fluctuation of the day, and yet who went broke all the same. They were experts at reading the tape, but novices at reading themselves. And when the heat came, when the stock turned against them, or when the profits beckoned, they folded like children because they had never studied their own behavior under fire. Can you recall a time when you swore to yourself you'd hold a position, only to sell the moment the market tested your nerves? And afterward, did you curse the market, or did you admit it was your own lack of discipline? The truth is, the market is a school, but most men are unwilling students. They come to learn about prices, but they refuse to learn about themselves. They crave systems, formulas, shortcuts, anything that spares them the humiliation of facing their own flaws. But the market has a way of forcing the lesson whether you like it or not. Losses have a way of tearing down illusions. Each time you ignore your own weaknesses, the market magnifies them. Each time you cling to hope instead of discipline, the market exacts a toll. It is relentless, merciless, and fair in the harshest sense of the word. The man who cannot read himself has no chance. Think of the gambler at the card table. He knows the rules of the game. He knows the odds, the probabilities, the statistics. But when the cards turn cold, what happens? His hands shake, his judgment clouds, and he begins to see luck where there is none. He bets more, chases harder, convinced he is on the brink of turning it all around. The odds haven't changed, the cards haven't lied. What has changed is the man himself. And it is the same in the market. Prices move as they always have, trends form and break as they always do, but the trader's emotions bend his vision until he no longer sees the truth. Have you ever chased a stock higher, knowing in your gut it was already too late, but you couldn't stand to be left behind? That wasn't the tape leading you astray. It was you. The most dangerous words in trading are not buy or sell. They are, this time it's different. Every man says them when he wants to excuse a breach of discipline. He convinces himself that this trade, this situation, justifies abandoning the rules he swore to follow. And in that moment, he is no longer reading the tape. He is reading the story he has written for himself. The market punishes such men without mercy. the rule they skipped, the one they didn't even know existed, is the rule of reading themselves as carefully as they read the tape. The discipline to watch your own reactions is harder than any study of price action. To sit in a position and feel the gnawing in your stomach when it moves against you, to resist the urge to close it too soon, to take a loss without argument or excuse. That is where the real struggle lies. The ticker doesn't test your intelligence, it tests your character, and character is not so easily trained. Do you have the stomach to admit that? To confess that your failures are not the fault of the market, but of your own nature? I can recall sitting in my office, watching a stock that I knew was right, and yet feeling every tick against me like a knife in the ribs. The urge to get out, to protect myself, to end the pain. It was nearly unbearable. The tape hadn't changed. My analysis hadn't changed. The only thing that changed was my tolerance for discomfort. In those moments, I learned that the hardest part of trading is not what the market does, it's what you do in response. And most men, when faced with that pressure, crumble. They'll tell you afterward that the market tricked them, that they were unlucky, that manipulation was at play. But deep down, if they are honest, they know the truth. They failed to read themselves. That is why fortunes are so often made and lost by the same men. They may have skill enough to win when the market is kind, but when the test of character comes, they reveal their weakness. They grab at small profits, they nurse large losses, they refuse to wait, and they'll keep repeating it until the last dollar is gone. The few who succeed, the rare 1%, are those who look inward with the same intensity they look outward. They recognize their own impulses before those impulses can ruin them. They learn to distrust the voice in their head that urges haste, or fear, or greed. And over time, they cultivate the only real edge a trader can have: mastery over himself. But how many of us truly do that? How many of us are willing to hold the mirror and face what looks back? The tape is impartial. It is the same for everyone. The difference lies in the man interpreting it. And if he cannot interpret himself, then all the skill in reading the tape will not save him. So I ask you, when you study the market, are you really studying the market? Or are you only studying the shadows of your own desires and fears? Be honest. Which is it? The market punishes impatience more than it punishes ignorance. A man can be ignorant and still get lucky, still stumble into a winning trade if the tide happens to be running in his favor. But impatience is a constant thief. It robs you whether the market is rising or falling, whether you are right or wrong. Impatience is the itch in the hands, the fire in the belly that makes a trader act when no action is required. Tell me, have you ever sat before the ticker, waiting for a setup, and felt that gnawing voice telling you that you must do something, anything, rather than sit idle? That voice is impatience, and if you don't master it, it will master you. When I began, I thought my job was to trade. That sounds simple, doesn't it? I believed that if I wasn't buying or selling, I wasn't doing my duty. I confused activity with progress. The bucket shops loved boys like me because we gave them a steady stream of commissions while slowly starving our own accounts. I would make a profit on a few points, then immediately hand it back on the next trade because I couldn't sit still. I thought being in the market at all times was proof that I was a trader. But the truth is, trading isn't about constant action, it's about waiting for the right action. Impatience blinds you to that truth. And haven't you felt the same? Haven't you opened a position on a whim, not because the tape called you, but because you couldn't stand the quiet? The market is like the sea. It ebbs, it flows, it swells and crashes, but it does not move just because you wish it to. A sailor who insists on setting sail in a storm is a fool, but a trader who insists on taking a position when the market is not ready is no wiser. The patient man waits for the tide. The impatient man tries to force it. And the sea, like the market, punishes him without hesitation. You must understand that the market is not an engine you can push into motion. It moves when it chooses, and it punishes the man who rushes to anticipate it. Have you ever lost money not because you were wrong, but because you were early? That's impatience disguised as foresight. There were times I studied the tape, and knew that a stock was preparing for a great move. All the signs were there: the accumulation, the tightening, the quiet before the storm. But knowing the storm is coming does not mean it has arrived. And yet, I would jump in early, sure of myself, only to see the stock drift aimlessly while my capital withered away. The direction was right, but the timing was wrong. Impatience made me forget that in trading, being early is the same as being wrong. Do you see it? The market does not reward men for guesses, it rewards them for waiting until the move has begun. The impatient man risks his fortune trying to be the first, while the patient man waits until the tide has turned and then rides it with ease. Which one are you? The crowd is impatient by nature. They want action, they want excitement. They want the feeling that they are part of the game. The brokers feed this desire because it fills their pockets with commissions. But the successful trader knows that trading is not entertainment. It is business. He waits even when the crowd is rushing in, even when it seems as though he is missing out. The impatient man fears missing the boat, but there is always another boat. There is always another opportunity. The one who rushes for every ship that leaves the harbor will find himself stranded, broke, and bitter. The one who waits for the right vessel sails far. Haven't you known that bitter feeling of chasing a stock only to be thrown overboard as it reversed? That is the price of impatience. I learned this lesson during the great campaigns. I would watch men lose everything, not because they didn't understand the market, but because they couldn't bear to wait. They wanted to be in the thick of it, to have money working at all times, to feel alive in the motion of the market. But the truth is, most of the time, the market is not offering anything worth taking. The real opportunities are rare, and they take time to form. Patience is not idleness, it is preparation. It is the strength to do nothing when nothing should be done. That is harder than it sounds. Can you sit on your hands while the market tempts you with every tick? Can you resist the urge to trade for the sake of trading? Impatience is most deadly when combined with loss. A man takes a loss, and rather than accept it, he grows restless. He wants to win it back at once, to prove to himself and the market that he is still right. So he jumps into another trade, hasty, careless, and almost always wrong. Losses born of impatience multiply like weeds, choking out the capital of the trader who cannot stop himself. This is why the market punishes impatience more than ignorance. An ignorant man may lose slowly, but an impatient man will destroy himself in a single campaign of reckless trades. Haven't you felt that sting? The need to earn back what you lost, and quickly. That is impatience driving the blade deeper. Even prophets can breed impatience. A man wins a trade, and suddenly he believes he has the touch, the golden hand. Instead of waiting for the next real opportunity, he leaps into whatever the tape shows him, convinced that his luck will hold. But luck is no system, and the market delights in humbling the man who mistakes fortune for skill. Impatience whispers that you must keep moving, keep acting, or else the magic will fade, and in trying to hold on to that feeling, you give back what you just earned. How many times have you watched a hard-won profit slip through your fingers because you rushed into the next play too soon? Patience is not just about waiting to enter, it is about waiting to exit. The impatient trader grabs at small gains, afraid the market will take them away. He sells too soon, locking in pennies while leaving fortunes on the table. The patient trader rides his winners, knowing that true profits come from sitting tight once the move is right. Impatience cheats you. Twice it pushes you into trades you shouldn't take, and it pulls you out of trades you should hold. If you are honest, how many times have you cut a winner short, telling yourself you'd take the safe profit, only to watch it double without you? The market is a stern teacher. It rewards patience only after it has punished impatience a dozen times. Most men never learn the lesson. They blow through their accounts chasing ghosts, convinced that action itself is profit. They cannot sit idle, they cannot resist, and so they become fuel for the fire. The small number who master patience find that the game transforms. They trade less, but win more. They wait longer, but their rewards are greater. They learn that doing nothing is sometimes the most profitable action of all. But tell me, can you bear that silence? Can you sit in the chair, hands folded, while the market goes on without you, knowing that your time will come if you wait? The truth is, impatience is human nature. We are built to act, to chase, to seize, but the market is not conquered by human nature. It is conquered by the few who rise above it. The impatient majority will always hand their money to the patient minority. That is the way of this game, and it has never changed, and it never will. The greatest mistake is seeking constant action instead of waiting for the right moment. Most men come into the market with the idea that their money must always be moving, that if they are not in a trade, they are missing something, wasting time, letting opportunities slip through their fingers. They believe that activity is the same as progress, that motion is the same as success. But the market does not reward movement for its own sake. It rewards timing, and timing demands patience. Tell me, haven't you ever felt restless while sitting out of the market, and placed a trade simply to feel that you were in the game? And didn't that trade turn against you more often than not? The danger is that constant action gives the illusion of productivity. A man may trade every hour of every day, yet end the week with nothing but losses. He tells himself he is busy, he is working, he is applying himself. But in reality, he is nothing but a gambler throwing dice at every turn, hoping that the sheer volume of his plays will yield profit. The market is not conquered by volume. It is conquered by selectivity. The man who waits for the right moment, who lets dozens of mediocre opportunities pass, and takes only the rare one that is ripe, that man wins. The rest exhaust themselves in constant action, bleeding little by little until nothing remains. Haven't you seen traders glued to the ticker, desperate to catch every move, only to wind up with empty pockets? When I began, I made the same mistake. I believed that to call myself a trader I must always be trading. I thought the job meant buying and selling, hour after hour, day after day. But what I learned, after many failures, was that the real job of the trader is waiting. Most of the time, the market is not offering anything worth taking. The conditions are poor, the trend uncertain, the movement choppy. To plunge in under those conditions is like marching an army into a swamp. You expend energy, lose men, and gain nothing. The wise general waits for the high ground, the clear path, the moment when the enemy is exposed. So it is in trading. The waiting is the work, and the action, when it finally comes, is brief but decisive. Do you have the strength to wait? Or do you waste your strength chasing every flicker on the tape? The crowd cannot bear to wait. They crave the thrill of action. They want to feel alive, to feel important, to feel part of the great game that unfolds each day. They mistake excitement for profit. The brokers and bucket shops encourage it, because every trade pays them, whether the trader wins or loses. But the market has no interest in keeping you entertained. It does not pay you for activity. It pays you for being right at the right time, and the right time is rare. Haven't you noticed how few trades in your career were truly decisive, truly profitable? A handful of campaigns can make your fortune, while the endless little trades nibble away at your capital. The market rewards the man who waits for those handfuls. There were times in my career when I sat idle for weeks, watching, studying, resisting the urge to act. Friends would ask me why I wasn't trading. They thought I had lost my nerve. But I knew better. I was waiting for the market to give me the clear signal, the unmistakable sign that the big move was beginning. And when that moment came, I struck with size and conviction, and the profits more than made up for the long silence. The amateurs who traded every day had nothing to show for their constant action, but a pile of small losses. They worked harder, they sweated more, but the market paid me for waiting. Doesn't that sound backward, that doing nothing often pays more than doing everything? Yet that is the way of this game. The danger of constant action is not only financial, but psychological. Every unnecessary trade chips away at your confidence. A loss here, a loss there, and soon you begin to doubt yourself, even when the real opportunity appears. You've wasted your energy, dulled your edge, exhausted your discipline. By the time the true move comes, you are too battered to take advantage of it. The patient man, on the other hand, has conserved his strength. He has waited, sharpened, prepared, and when the chance arrives, he is fresh and ready to act. Do you see the difference? One man is drained from 100 little battles, the other is strong for the one great war. I recall times when I broke my own rule and sought constant action. I thought I could scalp small profits while waiting for the bigger play, but those small profits rarely stayed in my pocket. The small trades distracted me, weakened my judgment, and when the big opportunity came, I missed it, or I entered half-heartedly. It taught me that the market doesn't reward divided attention. You cannot serve both impatience and discipline. You must choose. And if you choose constant action, you have already chosen defeat. Have you ever felt yourself so tangled in small trades that you missed the real move unfolding right before your eyes? The truth is that the great fortunes are made not by constant traders, but by selective traders. A man can sit idle for months and then make his entire year's profit in a single campaign. The public cannot grasp this because they confuse trading with labor. They think more hours, more trades, more effort should yield more reward. But the market does not care how hard you work. It cares only whether you are right